Tea time with librarians. Welcome everyone to Tea Time with Librarians. My name is Lacey Klemm. I am the Northwest Regional Coordinator for the Indiana State Library, and I am so happy to have Jen Clifton as our guest today. She is also part of the State Library. So welcome, Jen. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Lacey. I'm excited to be number 2 on your series.
So are you ready to spill some tea?
Yes, let's spill the tea. Actually, I have coffee. Is that okay?
That's fine, yeah.
Okay.
So to start, please let us know what your position is at ISL and give a brief description of what you do.
Sure. So I am the head of the Library Development Office here at the State Library, and I kind of happened into that role by starting out in another position within this office. So I've been here 16 years now, which over half my life. I know that's hard to, I'm just kidding. um, But I started out working, we had an interlibrary loan service called Indiana Share, which many of you are familiar with, as that kind of amped back up this year. And I was one of the people that processed the share request. We were over at Central Library, pulling books off shelves, shipping them out. And from there, we had a vacancy in the division where our grants coordinator moved on to Purdue. And I was considered for that position and happily took it. That was a really interesting thing to do, working with library grants and learning so much about library funding and all the needs of the libraries across the state. And then after that, after being in that role for several years, our office supervisor retired. And luckily, I was kind of next in line to take that position. So I've been happily doing this for about 7 years now.
And yeah, you started when you were 16.
Yeah. Yep.
The grants, I kind of became a reluctant grant writer when I worked for the East Chicago Public Library. So I learned a lot, but grant writing is not for the faint of heart for sure.
No, and it's not, a lot of people don't realize it's not just about getting money. There's usually a project attached. They don't want to just give you money just to give you operating funds. There should be something that comes out of it, and that's what the funders are interested in. So that's kind of a frustration of working in grants, is people don't
And
realize how much goes into it.
the paperwork, the reports, and
Yeah, we
so you're like,
manage
yeah, get the money, and then you have all this other stuff to do.
yeah, especially with federal grants, there's a lot of scrutiny with those. So we always have to make sure we're doing everything correctly. In fact, this coming year, our the Institute of Museum and Library Services is visiting the state library and probably several of the libraries across the state to do site visits and talk to us and check our records and all that good stuff.
So, what is your why for being a librarian and working in libraries?
Sure. So it was definitely an unplanned career. I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I started college. I went into elementary education, and after about a year of that, I thought, "Oh, like I don't think I should um, go any further with this." So I really enjoyed my psychology classes, sociology classes, kind of understanding why people are the way they are, and kind of dove into that. Got my bachelor's in psychology, minor in sociology, and then I did a little bit of trial counseling, seeing if that was something I wanted to go into, and it just wasn't for me. So just kind of kept my ears and eyes open, literally. And one day I was walking through the IUPUI campus and saw a sign for the School of Information, um, Library and Information Services, and I thought, "There's a library school, like that's a thing you can be that you can master in," and that's it just kinda all came together. I had all the qualifications, I had, it just kind of suited me, so I applied. I got a recommendation from a couple of my, favorite professors and got in. So, but, the reason it just makes sense for me, I've been a lifelong library user, and I always told myself I wanted to have a job where I can learn something new every day, and it's true. Even though I've been here 16 years, every single day is different. Everyone, things change. Sometimes, usually it's for good. Sometimes it's, something we have to pivot around, but it's been really fulfilling.
I actually, it was my mom that was like, you should be a librarian because I love to read. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do when I started college. And I didn't realize at the time how much schooling there was for it, because she'd actually first wanted me to be a pharmacist. And I'm like, no, I don't want to go to school that long. And then I'm like, I practically went to school that long anyway for library science, but
That's funny.
it suits me better.
I did consider pharmacy, but the amount of schooling was daunting, and I don't know. Looking at the way pharmacy techs have been treated these past few years, I'm glad I didn't go into that.
Well, they know so much about like the medication and everything like that, and I don't want to be responsible for for that. So I
That's one
much
thing I
rather.
always say, like even if we have a bad day at the library, like if you have to miss a day, nobody gets hurt because of it or anything like that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I'd much rather just recommend a book for you.
Yeah.
So what motivates you the most in your position?
So I really like my position here at the state library. I feel like we're very centrally based, just being in Indianapolis, but I feel like we're kind of at the core of what all the libraries in the state do. So that's really interesting. It's really nice to kind of see what's happening around the state and being involved in those conversations. And so most of what we do is serve libraries, but then when I think about how that translates to library service around the state, I think that's really exciting too. So basically anything I can do and anything our division can do. And then of course, we've got the whole other part of the library, the public part of the library downstairs, just chipping in wherever I can.
It's definitely a beautiful building. I I hopefully one day will know it really well, but since I don't go in as often, I still kind of feel like I'm the new to like find out where all the different stuff is. So,
Yeah.
but it's definitely a beautiful building.
I've been here 16 years, and I'll walk around sometimes and I'll notice things like little etchings in the wall or a door that I've never noticed. I'm like, what's behind that door? It's just it's funny. It's a really amazing building. I'm so glad that we're still here.
What is one Indiana State Library service that you wouldn't want Indiana libraries to be without?
So I starting here in resource sharing, and back when I was in library school working in resource sharing at I keep saying IUPUI, it's IU Indianapolis now, but resource sharing I just think is incredible. When I think about before I worked in libraries and when I was a library user, you feel like the frustration of going into a library. You put on your coat, you get out in your car, and you got to the library, and they don't have what you want. And depending on who you talk to that day, they might be willing to help, they might not. So, resource sharing, I think, is really cool because there's so many different ways it's provided around the state now, and it's nice to be able to for librarians to be able to tell their patrons, we don't have it, but I can try to get it for you. So we have a lot of different resource sharing services. I think people think Evergreen, even though that's more of a consortium that, they're all sharing those resources with each other and then with others. Indiana Shares, kind of the one we're leaning into most this year. I can talk about that later if it comes up, but I don't want to get too far into the weeds. Even the plaque program, I think that's really great that you can buy a statewide library card and use every library in the state. I think that's one of the biggest secrets out there. And we get a lot of questions about how that works. And then even digital collections. So Inspire, those databases, those are shared resources that, schools around the state, public libraries, even academic libraries, a lot of them have a little bit more of a robust collection, but they still use Inspire as their kind of core collection. So That's really great. And then I'm really excited about the Indiana Digital Library and how that's picked up over the past couple years, and how that's really opened Overdrive or Libby um, between all the participants. I think there's over 200 libraries participating in that now.
Yeah, it's I live where Lake County Public Library is my home library, so I have a card with them, and then I was able to get a card with Crown Point to be able to access the Indiana Digital Libraries, and then I still have a card with East Chicago, so it's nice to be able
Yeah.
to. I use the Libby and Hoopla and everything all the time, so.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. I'll be at home watching TV and there will be an author on, or they'll mention something and I'm like, does Indianapolis have that? And 9 times out of 10 they do.
Yeah, and there might be a little bit of a wait sometimes, but it's a great resource because I know I could not afford every single book that I read or would like to read, so that's where the libraries really help with that. So
Yeah.
And since we are on the topic of reading, what are you reading or listening to right now?
Sure. So I don't read a lot of fiction. I always feel bad because, I'll see my friends posting, I read 80 books this year. I'm not really like that. I read a lot of nonfiction. I kind of go through phases and, dive into things and want to learn everything about them. So lately, if you look at my checked out list at the Indianapolis Public Library, it's some travel books. We're planning the biggest trip I've ever been on this next summer. We're taking a Baltic cruise, and it's going to
Ooh,
be almost 2 weeks long, and we're stopping, I think it's 14 days and 12 countries. So
wow.
having never been to Europe, I feel like I really want to be prepared. So we've been checking out, got a Rick Steves book that's been really helpful, and then of course some more recent ones, but I've been really pleased with the library resources and helping with that.
That sounds amazing. I'm going on a cruise next year too, but it's 1 week and it's I know that one of the stops is like Honduras and then a couple other places. I can't remember
Oh,
exactly, but
nice.
yeah. I went on my first cruise last year and that was amazing. So I'm looking forward
Okay.
to it.
Which
Have you
cruise
ever
line are you
been?
going to be on?
Carnival.
Oh,
The
okay, fun.
Jubilee. Yeah, Carnival Jubilee. We went on the Panorama last year and then we decided to try out a different one, but yeah, it was a really good time.
Great. Yeah, I've been cruising for almost 20 years now. We got bit
Nice.
by the bug. My grandparents took us on our first one, and it's just such a great way to see the world, because you pack once, unpack once, and you get to, go everywhere they go. So
Yeah, you
that
don't
sounds
have to
exciting.
worry about food or drinks or entertainment or anything. It's just all right
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for the second Tea Time with Librarians. I wanted to try to interview as many Indiana State librarians as I could before I start interviewing public librarians or whoever staff that would like to be interviewed. So I think this is really a great way for Indiana libraries to kind of see what we do and get to know the state library a little bit more in a less formal way, maybe informal way. So thank you so much again for joining us, and I'm gonna go ahead and
Okay, thanks.